Hello, I'm Greg Ross. I'd like to welcome you to our coaching session on cold calling. We call this session Cold Calling 101, and this coaching session in particular is designed to be a cold call fundamentals course for sales reps. So if you're an account executive, sales manager, sales director, or any other variation of sales rep, and your job involves calling prospects to book meetings, then you'll get a lot out of this course. The goal here is to get you from 0 to 1 and give you the fundamental skills necessary to start making cold calls right away. We'll also attach some enablement content to this course in addition to this presentation to help you get off the ground faster. So let's go ahead and dive in, shall we? Before we get into the 3 pillars of cold calling, I just want to emphasize an important principle. There's an old proverb that says, whichever tree you water will grow. In other words, where you decide to dedicate your focus, your energy, and your time matters. If you want to generate sales through cold calling, you will absolutely need to block time on your calendar every single day and be really disciplined and consistent. I recommend blocking a little research time in the morning and blocking 1 to 2 hours of cold calling in the late afternoon. Now that's late afternoon, your prospect's time. Okay, let's start with some basics. In my judgment, it's never a good idea when you're new to cold calling to try to wing it. At least when you're first starting out, you'll definitely need to make a script for yourself. When we get to the next slide, we'll look at how your script should be structured. Once you gain more experience making these calls, you'll eventually ditch the script, but for now, you'll need one. Like I said, I'm going to attach a piece of enablement content to this course. That way you have an outline to work from, okay? You just need to make it your own. Once you have your script, focus on your tone. As you practice and rehearse your script, try to sound natural. Skip a few words here and there or change the wording up slightly. What we're going for here is to lean on the script for consistency, but we definitely don't want you to sound scripted or robotic. Does that make sense? If the prospect can tell that you're reading off of a script, you're toast. So be careful here. Finally, take time to practice, practice, practice. I want you to try rehearsing your script with a friend, roommate, or family member. Let's get you to the point where you can memorize the key elements of the script without necessarily needing to have it in front of you. The only way to accomplish this is through repetition. Now that we've got the basics covered, let's start working on that cold call script. I want you to take your notepad and create a section for each of the 4 steps you see here on the screen. You can see them outlined: the opener, insights and conversation, the pitch, and the CTA. Let's start with the opener. This is the initial few seconds of the call where the prospect picks up and you have the opportunity to grab their attention. Now, there's 2 ways to do the opener. You can either sound exactly like the 4 billion other salespeople that call, using tricks and gimmicks to try and get the meeting, or you can earn the right to ask for their time by showing that you can provide some value. Get this wrong and you'll get a lot of hangups. Next, you'll need to demonstrate that you've gleaned some insights about their business by doing a little pre-call research. This is where the magic happens. If you can get them talking about their business, their challenges, or the needs they have in their role, you've got a shot at building the credibility needed to ask for their time. Now it's time to pitch them. This is a simple statement about what your company does and the value you provide to your customers. Ideally, this should be something that can help them solve the challenges you've just discussed during your conversation. Finally, the call to action. This is the final part of the call where you ask for their time in the form of a meeting where you can present them with what you're selling. Each step needs to be handled just right, so we'll dive deeper into each in the next few slides. So here we have 3 openers that I've seen varying levels of success with when used by sales reps. The first is what I call the direct opener. It's designed to provoke some questions, which in theory should lead to conversation. It's going to sound something like this. Hey, Susan, this is Greg Ross with Phantom Sales. The reason for my call is to schedule an intro call with you next week. Do you have your calendar handy? With this opener, expect for Susan to fire back with a question like, what's this regarding? This is actually exactly what we want her to say, since it leads directly into your pitch. Kind of sneaky, but I've seen this work well for some people. The second opener is my favorite. I call it the research opener. In this approach, you're using your research to help spur conversation. It might sound something like this. Hey, Susan, this is Greg Ross with Phantom Sales. I was doing some research and noticed that your company employs a few hundred sales reps and SDRs. This opener usually offers a perfect segue into what you understand their challenges to be based off the research you've done. This is a really solid opener and typically gets great results. The third opener, which I call the cold call opener, is probably my least favorite. It's never worked for me personally, but it never ceases to amaze me that certain people can use this opener to get tons of meetings. So I don't know, maybe give it a try. It sounds like this. Hey, Susan, this is Greg Ross from Phantom Sales. I'll be honest, this is a cold call. Can I have 30 seconds to explain why I'm calling? Then if it makes sense for me to continue, you just let me know. If you're new to making cold calls, I recommend that you start with the research opener first. I think you'll find that it works very well. Now, the second step in the cold call is to share some insights that you've gleaned during your pre-call research. The goal here is to get the prospect to engage in conversation with you. Studies show that healthy conversation during cold calls leads to higher meeting rates, so we want to get them talking. Also, by asking a question relatively early in the call, you avoid doing what I call the pitch slap. This is essentially when the sales rep talks too much during the first part of the call, bulldozing their way through the opener and running right into their pitch without letting the prospect speak. You'll know if you're doing this because you'll get a ton of objections and hangups early in the call. I've identified 4 categories, which you'll see on your screen, that are great topics for discussion. Think about using these to get your prospect talking. Before your calls, spend no more than 2 to 3 minutes researching each company you're calling. Look at their website, their company, LinkedIn profile, or even their YouTube channel if they have one. Search for blog posts and articles written by their leadership team and be prepared to share insights related to their industry, their company, their challenges, or their role during your calls. This will result in higher conversion rates to booked meetings. Remember, you want to sound like a trusted advisor when you call, so they understand that your goal is to actually add value, not just sell them something. Now, as a social media expert, I want to remind you that you should definitely check a prospect's social media profile before reaching out. Check out their LinkedIn profile and look for any mutual connections. These are people who you're both connected to that could possibly introduce you to the prospect, or that you can name drop during your call to warm things up a little. If you can mention one of their recent posts and turn that into the reason for your call, that's solid gold. Also, use their language in the about section of their profile to make what you're offering relevant to them. For example, if you look at the screen, you can see that this person enjoys the challenge of scaling business. So talk about how what you're selling could help their business scale. Here's another pro tip. You can navigate to their company profile on LinkedIn and click on Insights to see if their company is growing and some information about their organization in their own words and with their own data. Finally, make sure you connect with each and every prospect that you're reaching out to. If they see a connection request from you, that gives you important name recognition when you call. Okay, let's get back to writing our script for a moment. So we have the opener. As I mentioned, I like the research opener best. Now, there's a question built into that opener, but you may want to ask a few additional questions as the call progresses. You should avoid broad questions like, how are you handling sales training? This question is very broad and unspecific and may frustrate the prospect, who you've actually caught by surprise with a cold call. In my judgment, when you ask broad questions, the prospect usually starts to give you objections or hangups. Instead, use the question to help build your credibility by showing that you've done some research and are prepared to add value. Questions should be specific and should sound something like this. I did a little research and I couldn't find anyone with a sales training title at XYZ company. Do you have someone handling that today? Think of questions like they're arrows in your quiver. You only get a few, so when you fire them away, they should be precise and purposeful. Make each arrow count and don't waste them. When it comes to the pitch, I see a lot of people mess this up. You want to focus on a few things here. First, keep it simple. Don't use complex terms, acronyms, product names, or lengthy explanations to describe your offering. A good pitch should be simple, understandable, and brief. Also, you want to focus on the value of your product or service. Think of this in terms of is, does, means. You can talk about what your offering is, in my case, sales training. Or you can focus on what your offering does, in my case, improving the sales skills for sales reps and SDRs. But when it comes to your pitch, you should emphasize what your offering means. Our Phantom Sales coaching sessions, for example, will help your reps learn best practices to help them close more business and generate more revenue for your company. That's what our sales training means to our customers. I'm not talking here about what phantom sales is or does. I'm focusing on the value or what it will mean to their business. The last step in your cold call is the call to action, or CTA. On your screen, you'll see two examples. In the first example, I'm using the word recommendations. I found that this works really, really well because it makes the intro meeting you're scheduling with them sound more consultative. Now, a word of caution here, if you're telling them that we'd love to share recommendations on the intro call, make sure you actually have some recommendations prepared, okay? Do not use this as a gimmick. Actually be prepared to add value. In the second example, I'm leading with an either or question. This gets them psychologically out of a yes or no decision and makes it much more likely that you'll book the meeting. So play around with these and rehearse them. Pick whichever CTA you like best, or blend them together to create your own perfect conclusion to the call. One rookie mistake that I see folks make all the time when they're first getting started is that they book the meeting, but forget to confirm the prospect's email address before they hang up. Make a note on your notepad at the very end of your script to remember to confirm the prospect's email. Very important. Circle it, put a big star next to it, because if you don't, when you go to send them a calendar invite, your email will either bounce or because you have a bad email, or you won't have an email address to send it to, and you'll have to call them back, wringing your hat, saying, "Oh, I forgot to get your email address." Ouch, you could not look like more of a rookie. Always leave a voicemail. You notice I put that in all caps because it's very important. Listen, guys, if you're taking the time to do some research and make a cold call, you should also leave a voicemail. I recommend strongly that you leave a voicemail every single time. There are a few best practices that will increase the chances of you getting a response. This has to be done exactly right, or you'll find that your voicemails won't get the results that you're looking for. First, state the reason you're calling right up front. We don't want to sound super salesy here. Avoid selling them over voicemail at all costs. Do not sell over voicemail. Second, direct them to your email. This will increase your email open rate, and they will see a full explanation of what you're offering in the email. Third, leave your contact information last. If you state your name and phone number at the beginning of the call, that's typically where your prospects will delete your voicemail. If you leave your contact info last, they're forced to listen to your message and decide based on the merits if they'll delete it or call you back. This gives you a much better chance of getting a response. Your voicemail should sound like this. "Hi, Jim. The reason for my call is to discuss a few recommendations with you and the team regarding ways that we can help improve your sales training at XYZ company. I took a look on LinkedIn and couldn't find anyone working there with a sales training title. I sent you an email yesterday at 3 p.m. with some additional information. Check it out and either call me back or just reply to the email if that's easier. This is Greg Ross with Phantom Sales, and my telephone number is 867-5309. Now, what happens if you go through your cold call script and the prospect decides to take you up on your offer to meet, but they want to do it now? What do? Well, you definitely do not want to try to delay and schedule something. If they're ready to talk now, you need to talk now. I recommend launching directly into what I call an impromptu intro call. I would say something like this. "Sure, I'd love to. Can I email you a quick link to my screen share? Let me just confirm your email address." Send them the link and fire it up, baby. Be prepared to share a few recommendations. And if you can't get through a full 30 minutes with them, don't worry. At least you've had a chance to ask some discovery questions, build some rapport, and you can set next steps from there. Don't ever miss an opportunity to talk business with your prospects. Part of playing a good sales game is being flexible, adaptable, and agile. All right, team. Before we end this session, I'd like to leave you with some pro tips. Tip number 1. Never settle for the first no. At the end of every cold call, put yourself in the mindset to expect a no. Now, you're going to book a lot of meetings, but if you expect a no, you'll be mentally prepared to push past it. The no will sound a little different each time and may come in the form of a few different objections. "We're all set. We've already got a provider for that. I don't have time to meet right now. Send me an email with more information." These are just a few of the no's you'll hear. If all you do is circle back and reiterate the value, pushing for the meeting a second time, you should automatically be able to flip a few of those no's into yeses. Number 2, be tough. You'll get a ton of rejection when cold calling. Do not take it personally. If you want to win, and I know you do, put on your armor and fight through the rejections. Stay focused on the wins. Remember, the more calls you make, the more meetings you'll book, and the more money you'll make. Very good. And finally, be multi-threaded. What I mean by that is find a few prospects at each company to call. If one person says no, don't give up on the company. Call the others and push for a yes. I've gotten many no's from one person on the team and have gone on to get a yes from someone else at their company. There is one important exception to this rule. If the CEO tells you no, you should probably listen. This is Greg Ross, and I'd like to personally thank you for joining me today. As I mentioned, we'll make additional sales enablement content available to you as part of this course. If you're interested in it, comment below yes, Y-E-S, and I'll send it to you. Take your time and study these concepts, because what sets the best salespeople in the world apart is that they take the time to master the fundamentals. Remember, if you're going to play, play to win. Bye, guys.